The Final Fantasy IX Remake has been a topic of Square Enix conversation for quite some time now. This started back in 2021, ever since the Nvidia Games List leak happened. This list contained a lot of unannounced projects from various different video game developers from throughout the industry. Square Enix were a notable one here. Kingdom Hearts 4 was on this list and got revealed about a year later. In fact, most of the games that were here for Square turned out to be very real. The only two projects here of Square's that hasn't received an official announcement is Final Fantasy Tactics and the FF9 Remake. But the Nvidia leak is incredibly valid, and since 2021, it's really just been a waiting game to see if Square Enix will officially announce this project. There's been numerous rumors surrounding FF9 Remake since it first appeared on the Nvidia list. Whether it's coming from a reputable industry insider, Jeff Grubb, back in 2023.
I will say I heard very recently, once again, Final Fantasy IX Remake is real. Like, that is real and happening, so...
A more recent Epic Games database leak, which shows us a bunch of Square Enix projects, with one codenamed Momo, which pertains to Final Fantasy IX, or the comment made by Nate the Hate earlier this year, who is an industry insider who's been very right about a lot of things recently, mentioning that Final Fantasy IX Remake is still in development, but isn't expected to see a release this year, but maybe in 2026. Then again, there was a comment made by Naoki Yoshida, the director of Final Fantasy XIV, last year in September, mentioning that the recent FF9 collab with Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have anything to do with a remake, and mentioned that if any team were to take on doing a remake for 9, I would wish them the best of luck. A lot of people took this as Yoshi P basically deconfirming any existence of a 9 remake. But I think people have to realize that Yoshi P is responsible for his own projects, and I can't imagine that he would have any involvement in a 9 remake, so just because he's kind of deconfirmed it doesn't outright mean it doesn't exist. He could very likely just be putting on a front. Considering that a remake of 9 first appeared back in 2021, this would probably suggest that it's been in development for quite some time now, likely as early as 2020. And if that really is true, it would mean that around about now we are probably inching very close to a release, either looking at 2025 or, like what Nate mentioned here, 2026. And we know that this year is actually the 25th anniversary of the game. In fact, Square Enix recently announced a campaign to celebrate the 25th anniversary of 9. I don't think a lot of people were expecting this, as it was the 20th anniversary of Final Fantasy VIII last year, but Square Enix didn't really do anything special for that. And it's interesting that they didn't. I would consider both 9 and 8 to be on about the same playing field in the sense of cultural relevancy and popularity. Though, if we're looking at total sales, 8 has actually performed better overall compared to 9. Now, I'm not a die-hard Final Fantasy fan, so I can't really personally comment on the cultural impact of what is more relevant, 9 or 8. But from my experience of hanging around the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts communities for quite some time now, I definitely see 9 pop into more conversations than I do 8. Although, at least looking at recent years, it's probably due to the fact that 9 has been involved in a remake leap. However, you have to imagine that if Square Enix are actually doing a big campaign with a special logo to celebrate the 25th anniversary of this title, then they likely have something pretty special lined up. They've mentioned that they have plans for the 25th anniversary, and some stuff's already been revealed with more stuff to come. Right now, we have a bunch of brand new merchandise, plushies, along with vinyl, and there's even a couple of special collaborations. But Square Enix have announced that there's also going to be some special projects. Now, the actual 25th anniversary of the game isn't until the 7th of July, so Square Enix have started this whole campaign quite early, considering it's only April. So no doubt, more stuff in relation to the anniversary will be announced leading up to July. And we know that June is the big video game news month with Summer Games Fest. I would say that if Square Enix truly are intending to remake Final Fantasy IX, considering that we've got so much evidence pointing towards its existence, June is likely going to be the month where we finally get to see it. I personally don't think that Square Enix would go all out and make a big deal about this anniversary if they didn't have something substantial schedule lined up. Keep in mind that Square Enix made a big deal out of the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary that happened a couple of years back. A very similar special logo was created to celebrate this, along with the announcement of Rebirth. So it seems that Square are wanting to do the exact same thing here with 9. And unfortunately, not 8. You're in my thoughts, Final Fantasy VIII fans. Something interesting that was pointed out by Twitter user Jivraru is over on the new 25th anniversary website for Final Fantasy IX contains a currently hidden game category for the website, which could possibly pertain to once the game officially gets announced, this category will then become public on the website. It kind of seems like Square Enix need this as well, because right now, as we've previously talked about, the Square Enix release pipeline is incredibly dry. While at some point in the future we'll have Kingdom Hearts 4 along with Dragon Quest 12, there are currently no release dates for those games. I mean, we can only hope that looking at KH4, it is possibly a 2026 release with maybe Dragon Quest 12 in 2027. Well, you know, the other way round, considering that DQ12 was actually announced first. But a Final Fantasy IX Remake would be great for a big title for the end of 2025 or early 2026. Most people also believe that this remake wouldn't be to the same scale as something like the Final Fantasy VII Remake. A little bit less ambitious than those games, somewhere between what Square Enix did with Crisis Core and Final Fantasy VII Remake, with the game remaining to be a turn-based title, but includes various quality of life improvements, redone cutscenes, brand new character models, environments, the works. Well, yes, preferably, I'd love to see Final Fantasy IX take on the combat system of what we have in Final Fantasy VII Remake, as that game has a really nice blend of real-time action along with elements of traditional Final Fantasy turn-based. For a long time now, Final Fantasy fans have wanted Square Enix to return to their turn-based roots with mainline Final Fantasy games. I think though that it would be cool if Square Enix could do something along the lines of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The game is primarily turn-based, but it has quite a few real-time elements strung into it. This would be a really cool evolution of Square Enix's traditional Final Fantasy turn-based system. Square Enix have been really trying to appeal to other audience types, hence why the Final Fantasy series has been moving more into real-time action over the past decade, but maybe it's time for Square Enix to return to their roots, as there's clearly still a want for turn-based. There's also just a strong want for the remake of 9, though I guess you could say that about most of the mainline Final Fantasy titles, but if we look at Project Memoria, a fan-made recreation of Final Fantasy IX within Unreal Engine, though it isn't technically a game, more of just a visual showcase to show you perhaps what 9 would look like in a remade format. It looks simply fantastic, especially because 9 is quite unique in its visuals, as it uses a stylized art style, very different to all other mainline Final Fantasy games. And this thing generated a ton of attention, with the gameplay video gaining over 1.7 million views. I don't have a single doubt that Square Enix absolutely caught wind of this. So we've got a lot of good pointers right now suggesting that Final Fantasy IX Remake is in fact real, and that we're on the brink of a proper official announcement, and could very likely be the next big release for Square Enix. A perfect way to fill the current gap that Square have for their release pipeline leading up to either DQ12 or Kingdom Hearts 4. If it truly is going to happen, we should know by July at the latest. I was actually holding off from making this video until the Switch 2 Direct happens, because a lot of people believe that with the 25th anniversary campaign that's currently going on right now, that one of the big Square Enix reveals for the Switch 2 Direct was in fact going to be Final Fantasy IX Remake. This of course didn't happen. We got Bravely Default along with Final Fantasy VII Remake on Switch. So now it's all eyes on Summer Games Fest. I think that if Square Enix step forward to announce Final Fantasy IX Remake along with something new finally to do with Kingdom Hearts 4, then they're gonna have a really good presence this year. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Slap a like on this video, it helps me out more than you know, and subscribe if you haven't already. A big thank you to my wonderful patrons, I appreciate the ongoing support. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.